will open the Rutland Select Board and Board of Public Works agenda for Monday, October 2nd, 2023. It is 6:01 p.m. We are meeting in the bottom lower level of the Rutland Public Library. We are on Zoom. We are also being live streamed on local access television and being recorded for viewing later on local access television, YouTube, and other social media outlets. We will start with the pledge, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all.
We have a 4-member board here tonight. Tom, I don't think is going to be able to make it for tonight, so I don't think he'll be on Zoom either, so. I will go right into our agenda. I will accept a motion to approve treasury warrant and payroll.
I make a motion to approve treasury warrant 24-7 and payroll 24-PW7.
Second emotion.
Second, Austin, were there any significant? Nothing. Questions, comments? Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson and I recuse myself on payroll activities for cable.
Ledger I.
And Whitman, aye. We have 3 sets of meetings. 3 sets of meeting minutes. I think everyone was present for all of them, so it's at the pleasure of the board if we want to approve them as a slate or not. There's Monday, September 13th, which was bylaw review, I think. Wednesday, September 18th. No, the 13th would have been a Wednesday, I think, right? And then the 18th was a Monday, a regular meeting, and then the 25th was a Monday, which was bylaw and joint with FinCom.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as a slate all together.
Second emotion.
Second, questions, comments, concerns, anyone have any comments about the minutes?
Nice job writing them. Oh, I see nothing.
Hearing none, I'll take roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Mattson and I.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Tamika. I'll keep my comments short and sweet. I wanna thank everyone for coming tonight. It's been a rainy week or so. Thank you for the patience. I think we've been, the sports teams have been challenged with the weather. I think the construction has maybe been a little challenged by the weather as well, so thank everyone for your patience with all of that. So any other board members have any questions or comments?
Okay. Me too.
Okay. Moving in, we have a proclamation for the First Congregational Church of Rutland to honor their 300th anniversary. I think we have some members we have Pastor Fish and some Congregational Church members here. So if you don't mind standing up and coming forward.
Okay. All right. During the year 1723, a group of citizens came together to form the First Congregational Church of Rutland. From those early beginnings and down through the years, the parishioners have continued the church and to service the town of Rutland, and now come together to celebrate the church's 300th anniversary this year. In honor of the 300th celebration, we'd like to present this proclamation to the church and say thank you for your services and that you continue to provide to the town. It's a gracious and thankful town.
We have the proclamation. Town of Rutland Whereas what was to become the First Congregational Church of Rutland, founded in 1720 by the Puritan colonists, and whereas the first building was erected in 1721 and rebuilt 5 times due to fire, and whereas the Congregational Church has served the community for 300 years as a place of spiritual renewal and community service, now therefore, the Select Board of the Town of Rutland does hereby congratulate the First Congregational Church of Rutland on their 300th anniversary of serving the Town of Rutland and surrounding communities, and in recognition of the contributions of the parish.
Thank you.
You wanna say something?
We have a key to the town also, to the church. Pastor Fish will hand it to you. This is to acknowledge the vital role that the Congregational Church as a whole has provided to the town over the past 300 plus years, because we know it's been. So thank you for the dedication and commitment
Use
to
it well.
town.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Would
and
you
I will
like to do a
present to
photo
you
with all
2
of us?
copies of the service on DVD and 2
Oh.
copies of the service on flash drive.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Anyone else would like, get a hold of us and we'll be glad to give them to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, that's
All right.
awesome.
Member. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. We can do a photo then also if you'd like.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Yeah.
Dave?
Thank you, Rainey
Thank you
says
so
to say
much.
hello.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, do you want to stand for a photo?
Thank you.
We can all do a photo together
Okay.
Thank you. Where are we going?
up here with us. You're with us.
We're going in there with us.
Entering the den.
Yeah, let's see if I can. All right,
Get cozy.
Phil, you can squeeze in here.
I can squeeze in by Paul here, he won't mind.
Paul's a member.
I can stand here.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're excused. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good, Harry. Congratulations.
How you doing? How's things going? Good.
Yes, congratulations. Congratulations. I'm glad I came tonight. We never did. She got sick and I couldn't bring it to her. I'll get it. No, I'll get it. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Lou.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're moving now into public comment. We have a full house, or some some eager speakers, so
You were here to me.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Lou.
I mean, you're a tough act to follow, but.
No, I'm not. I used to be at one time. Thank you. My name's Lou Carniccioli. I live at 18 Blueberry Lane here in the great town of Rutland. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the board for the appointment that you made of Chris to the head of the DPW. I think that was a super move on your part. I've always been a big believer when I was a selectman that I always wanted to hire from within. We wanted our people who work for us to be loyal to the town, and I think it's important that we show loyalty back to all the employees of our community, that we're willing to promote you and that you're an integral part of our community. So I applaud you. Job well done. Next, I have a list of 2 or 3 things, actually 4. As you may remember from the annual town meeting, I gave an impassioned presentation about grants. So I'd like to know, where are we on grants? I see as I ride around the state, a tremendous amount of money being spent by the state of Massachusetts on roads and sidewalks. Sidewalks I've lived in town since 1973. Now we're putting sidewalks on Palmagussit. I went through Gilbertsville earlier in the summer. In the little town of Gilbertsville, they're putting sidewalks. It says to me that the state of Massachusetts has a tremendous amount of money. And that, are we actively going after it? I have some concerns. I think we tried to do it when I was a selectman, we just ran out of time and we ran out of money to do it. But the town hall needs to be renovated. Have we looked into grants to add on and to renovate it and bring it into the 2023, 2024? we could really use a new senior center. I was over there at the beginning of the summer until I hurt my back and couldn't go back to exercising. It's a great place to be, but you really use a nice modern place. My ideal place would be when you pull into the off of Maple Ave in the old hospital territory, on the right-hand side, that large strip of land would be a perfect site for a brand-new, state-of-the-art senior center. I'm sure there are grants out there for that. A dispatch center. We're looking to move the dispatch center, I'm told. And yet, we haven't gone anywhere yet. I'm sure you got plans. But is there grant money to find the building and renovate or to build a new building? And lastly, I know a grant, say, for DPW equipment, new vehicles. As I look at our equipment, it seems to me some of our trucks are getting old. And I'm sure you guys are right up on top of that. I know the town administrator is. Have we looked into grants? I'm a big believer in grants. That's why I wanted to have a grant writer. So my question to you is, where are we? Are we moving in any direction? Are we actively going after this? So that we take advantage of the money that I know the state and the federal government has.
Do you mind if I respond?
That's-
Yeah, I love grants as well. I'm actually proud to say, town departments have already successfully received almost $700,000 this fiscal year in grants. A large majority of that is the dispatch operation that you mentioned. We also received a grant to upgrade our town website. We received a grant for a solid waste survey and also to offset our assessment to Wachusett Earth Day. But we are also actively looking at some other grants. We're looking at a municipal fiber grant right now to expand our fiber network. We're also looking at a grant to improve the security in our town facilities and our schools as well, and working with our school counterparts as well for the internal security of that building as well, of those facilities. Some of the construction grants that you mentioned are a little bit more challenging because, as you know, from being a selectman in the past, oftentimes to advance and to receive grant funding, you need to have shovel-ready projects. One of the ways to get shovel-ready is to front some of the design costs, which we do not have any projects that are shovel-ready at this point. So the town hall still needs some work and some funding to get to the advanced design. The same thing with some of our roadway infrastructure. We do have an opportunity to take advantage of Chapter 90 money to advance some of the design, but we're still in the early phases on a lot of those projects. But certainly we'll be pursuing any grant opportunity, especially with a lot of this free state and federal money that's out there to offset the tax base as well.
In my last year as selectman, which I left in May of '06, 4 or 5 of us worked on, and we had plans for expansion of and renovating and expanding the present town hall. I know that they're somewhere, and I was also told that there are other plans floating around. Would those be significant, and could they take the part that you talked about being shovel-ready? If we've already got existing plans, maybe just take a little bit of tweaking to upgrade those. Just a thought. You
Can I
know,
respond?
I understand we still have debts.
Yep.
I was one of the selectmen to help run them up because we built the library when I was selectman. We built the police station when I was a selectman. We built Glenwood School. We renovated the high school. We did some major in the DPW building. We built that. We did some major renovating and major building when I was on the board of selectmen. And I know that those bills are still out there. You know, I'm glad we did what we did. It's the sad part about it is that the debt is still there. But so I realize we're not flush with cash, but I would really hope that we would continue to pursue. I still believe we need someone dedicated to and I don't think the burden should be on you or should be on your assistant. You folks have enough work to do. I really think there should be someone who's coordinating all the grants. I think that's paramount and needed to be done, but that's an argument for another day.
Can I want to applaud you in your previous efforts as a selectman for advancing. That was a feasibility study and sort of a initial design for what it would look like, potential, I think there was 5 or 6 different options for town hall. However, there's no really cost estimates and no
couldn't-
advanced
I
drawings.
couldn't
but
remember.
Certainly a good first step, and that's actually what we've kind of forwarded to our engineers to see if they could give us any sort of initial cost ballpark for capital on the select board.
Well, I just hope, Madam Chair, that we continue, and fellow select people, that we continue to actively and aggressively go after grants, because in this day and age, it's a shame that that money is gonna sit somewhere in the coffers of the State House or in the federal government, and we're not particular. I'd like to see us be a little bit more aggressive, but I understand, having been on where you're sitting, and at the time, we did not have a town administrator, we were on our own, although we had two incredibly excellent people in Jackie O'Brien and Nancy Macaruso, who made us look good. So anyway,
But I think if I may quickly, to your point about hiring a grant administrator, or grant contractor or something, I think that's a conversation that happens. It's figuring out the funding mechanism, if there's value to adding economic development / grant administrator or contractor, or regionalizing it with, throughout CMRPC and some of our neighboring communities. My concern about regionalizing the grant aspect is if there's conflict in applying for the same grant, multiple communities applying for the same grant.
I can understand that, yeah.
But it's definitely on our radar, and as well as the town administrator's radar as a top,
I'm glad to hear that.
a higher priority,
I'm
but
encouraged by that.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of more.
Through the chair, Mr. Knuckles, can I finish your question?
Sure.
There were two things you brought up. One was the dispatch center, and you want to address that in terms of where we're trying to go with that?
Sure, yeah, so it's my understanding that we need essentially one more community to have the ability to create a new facility or renovate an existing facility into a modern dispatch center. So we've reached out to some communities that have expressed interest to the state 911 department, but we're nowhere near a point where a community has committed or expressed deeper interest rather than just initial questions.
What are we now, about 5 communities?
Yes.
5?
And if you would address the parking lot here by the, I don't know if you're familiar how we got this parking lot done by the town hall?
Oh, I didn't bring that up, but I know how that happened. I understand the town administrator was instrumental in that.
Well, the reason I bring it up is that's something that wasn't a grant item, and yet we still were able to
Yeah,
get
and that
funds
saved the
from the
town,
state.
that saved the town some money.
Right.
Yeah, it looks good. It really does look good, you know?
I'm lucky to run into you at Dunkin' Donuts in the morning when I get my coffee, so I can tell you about
Don't
that.
come in anymore.
Yeah, I
He used
know.
to come into Dunkin' Donuts.
Maybe he's trying to avoid you.
I asked too many questions. I caught him once going through the drive-through at
Put my
And
sunglasses
I happened to
on.
stop and tax him one morning, and there he was going through the drive-through.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I promise not to harass you when you come in. Cause they miss you in Rutland. A couple of other things, I'll be quick. Let's do the easy one first. I was out of town when this, I guess I could have come up to your office and asked this. This community coming up at the Heights, the 55 community, are we tied into federal regulations that haunted some of the senior centers in the city of Worcester, or is this? In other words, I remember one of the big complaints in the senior centers, housing for the elderly in Worcester, under the federal guidelines, that seniors were allowed to go in there who had certain issues, and it was creating problems. That, we don't have to worry about that where we're up here,
my
right?
understanding, that's a
It's a completely
100%
independent
private
group?
development.
Okay, good, super. That makes me feel better. I guess I could have come up and asked you, but I didn't wanna haunt you. And last,
Bring him coffee along.
yeah,
Bring him his coffee. He'll
Bring
be
his
happy.
coffee.
Cream only, please. Thank you.
cream only, okay. I like it. One last thing, as you know that, or some of you may know, I was instrumental in getting the ball pushed towards the goal line to get that, what I think is a great electronic sign up front. I was going to put an article on the warrant for the annual town meeting, and the Board of Selectmen at that time was able to come up with some funding, and I really think it adds an awful lot to our community. I've been in this community since 1973. My children all went through the Rutland Public Schools. One of my kids is very involved in the Rutland Public Schools over at Central Tree. I think the sign that's on 122 is the same sign from when my kids were at Naquag. I think it's useless. It doesn't give you any kind of information. It's an eyesore because it's right where you come through the center of our community. I talk with my friend here about the funding, where the town is obligated when it comes to school building and where the schools are. And the difference is $35,000. In order to put up a sign that would be adequate, an electronic sign that would be adequate for both Naquag and Central Tree, I'm sure it's gonna be, I did a quick little looking into this, and it's gonna be something probably that the town is gonna be responsible for. I'm at this particular point, I don't know if it's necessary, although I'd love to see one for Glenwood, because there's not a heck of a lot of traffic that goes by there. And is there a need for a sign there? In the best of worlds, it would be fabulous. But if we're limited in resources. So I'm asking you to look seriously into trying to work with the school department and come up with a new sign that would be adequate both for Central Tree. I don't see two separate signs, but I see a sign probably bigger than the one we have out here that would be able to encompass both schools so that people, they can get their information out, people can see the information, parents, because I'm sure you realize, some of you going by there, that there's an incredible amount of parents who go into our schools, not just our schools. I'm amazed, as a former teacher, I'm amazed at the amount of people, kids, who are driven to school by mommy and daddy. And I'm not talking just elementary school, I'm talking middle school, and I'm talking high school. I went by Wachusett one day, and the line, I couldn't believe where the line was, and they were coming both ways, and it was parents with their children. So, just to cover my bases, I am going to put on for the annual town meeting, I am going to get signatures and put an article on to look into funding a sign for Naquag and for Central Tree. I'm hoping that in the meantime, maybe you folks can come up with some way of funding it that we'll be able to get, if I remember correctly, the sign out front, there was some sort of a fund, who was on the board back then?
I was.
You were, wasn't there I remember Sheila telling me there was a fund that you were able to get dollars out of that, and it really didn't impact the town. You remember that?
I think it was CARES Act, because I think that it was either
So-
CARES Act.
CARES or
Okay,
early
is
ARPA
that something
or
we could
something
look
when.
into for,
That's gone.
oh, it's gone?
That's gone. That
But
happened during
has
the
something
pandemic.
taken its place?
No.
No, that's too bad. Anyway, I would like to, I know that there are other pressing issues, but I really think, especially where it's right there in the middle of everything, that we should be looking into that. And I think it would really enhance the schools and be something that maybe the parents, maybe I should, before I head off for the sun of Florida, I hate going there, but anyway, I really do. I could maybe talk to a couple of parents groups, but I just wanna lay that out to you, and hopefully you folks can work on that. I know Austin's got a lot of free time, and you could give him another assignment.
I'd have more
Thank
free
for
time if you
listening.
got him coffee.
I'll buy him a coffee any morning and sit with him.
I just wanted to, I know the school, the PTOs at the schools have been working a lot on, playground issues and
Yep.
updating the playgrounds.
Right.
So I don't know what their availability to help contribute to offset some of the cost.
Right.
But we have it documented that we'll look into it and reach out to the school,
I
to the
appreciate
school
that,
district and
and,
see.
yeah, again, maybe that might be something that a grant could be found. And maybe, I think reaching out to the school department, maybe this is something where the two entities could work together and maybe share the cost. Instead of them having to pay the whole thing, or you pay the whole thing, you split it down the middle, and the sign is done, and it doesn't have as big an impact on the budgets. And I remember budget times. thank God for Doug Briggs, because I couldn't add 2 and 2. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Kelly. Are there additional, Mr. Bajorklin? Name and address, please.
Brian Bjorklund, 22 Charlotte Drive. As you're all aware, the public water supply in town, the drinking water is god awful this time of year, and especially over in our neighborhood, Charlotte Drive, Blueberry, Nancy Drive, that whole area. So I'm just requesting that the town looks into starting a water commission or board, like the majority of the surrounding towns have. We have the towns of Spencer, Holden, Paxton, West Boylston, Leicester, Barry, all have boards specifically for their drinking water. And Worcester and Sterling both have DPW boards that encompass the water. I know we have a DPW board, but it's not really defined that they're, in charge of, looking at water as well. But we pay a lot of money for our water, and it's not really palatable this time of year. So, and there's several other people that are tuned in that agree with me on that, and I just don't know what's involved in starting a board or commission.
Austin, so currently the Board of Public Works is select board and we oversee water and sewer. As part of that, there is a water department that is staffed with dedicated individuals. And we hear the concern every year. It's an ongoing partially nature of having a pond as a water source. And partially, I would argue the growth that's happened in town connecting to that water source. And so we as a board and with Austin and DPW are looking at an alternate water source, an additional water source. Obviously, it's not an inexpensive venture.
Right.
And it's not falling, it may feel like it falls on deaf ears, but we've been looking at it and working on it and trying through staff and everything to figure out the best plan forward.
We could almost set our watches by how, like, when the pond flips, it's just awful. And then we have the concerns about the PCEs and the Tetra, whatever it is, in the water, and we just had to put a $3,000 filtration system in our house because of that.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we should have to do. We should be able to rely on our drinking water to be clean and safe. So
I will say there are wells in town, people on well water that have high arsenic levels and can't drink their water because of the arsenic levels. There's other well-based concerns also, so it's the nature of unfortunately the nature of where we are. Again, it's not falling on deaf ears, although it may kind of feel like it at times. Harry, and then we have a couple.
I'll just say that this water issue has been a concern of the board for years. Okay, and we are really looking at alternatives that don't cost us millions and millions of dollars. Are you familiar with Beechwood Drive?
Yeah.
I live on Beechwood Drive. My water's as clear as you can get.
Mhm.
However, I have a citizen who came to me who lives on Blueberry, lives almost right across from you, Louis, and she said her water is terrible.
Yeah.
So it seems to be pockets in town, because it's not me, where we're getting these problems. And I think the DPW and our town administrator is trying to address those pockets, how we can clean that up on that. Austin?
And that might be another, speaking on grants, there's gotta be federal grants for clean water, especially after everything that went on in Flint. Like, there's gotta be, opportunities for grants.
So I'm not sure, before I hit onto Zoom, but I'm not sure if anybody saw that we've put on our website a lot of information about the water, and we've asked that if people are having individual house testing done,
Yep.
if they feel comfortable submitting those results to the town so we can try to track to the house, because we know what's coming out of the facility and what's going into the system, but we can spot check throughout the system, but we can't check individual houses. So the more information we can collect, the better we are able to try to pinpoint and develop a comprehensive plan.
Yeah, and we're on a dead end road, so the water just sits there.
Yeah.
You know,
And I
it's
think
not
that
connected
was-
to anywhere else, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. there are 4 people who started to talk to me when the water started to go south, if you will, okay? Now, these 4 people have been constantly upgrading me on what the situation is. And as of last Thursday, all 4 people had said that the improvement in the water in their homes was very much improved. So in other words, yes, people are trying to do things to help this, but obviously, you know, there's an unscientific explanation for it, and I won't bother to go into it because that may be a conflict with somebody else's thinking. But at any rate, all 4 of these people who have been reporting to me, and 3 of them are from different points in town, and one of them is from the same point as one of the other people. So, you know, okay, so what I'm getting is, you know, that the water is clearing up. So, we've gone some distance with what we're doing, and so, you know, hopefully we can continue.
Sorry to hear about your particular situation. Very uncomfortable, I understand.
Yep. Yeah, we can't wash white laundry this time of year, you
Yeah.
know, because they come up brown.
Just be assured, we are trying.
So I'll go on to Zoom. I see George Farrington. Can you hear us, George?
Yep. Hi, George Farrington, 21 Cheryland Drive. I agree with Ryan. I hear what all of you are saying, that, you know, you guys have been working for years to come up with a solution. Well, for years, our water bill keeps going up and our water quality keeps getting worse, especially this time of year. So, you know, I appreciate the work that you have been putting into it, but what we're telling you as citizens is that more needs to be done, and more needs to be done right away, because, you know, we shouldn't have $400-500 water bill, quarterly water bills, and still have to go out and buy bottled water by the case, you know, just to send our kids to school with something to drink. You know, so with yeah, with all due respect, you know, I know there's money out there to do things for these clean water systems through the federal grants and things like that, through the ARPA Act. I know there is. So I would really encourage somebody on the board to start looking into these and really fixing this water problem once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Christine?
Hi, Christine Bjorklund, 22 Cheryland Drive. I'm basically going to echo the same concerns from Brian, my husband, who's there tonight, and George across the street, and every other person, you know, whether, you know, the pockets of people that have complained about this. We've been here for 7 years, and every year we have to call about it. So 7 years is a long time to be working on it. I get that, like, work is being done, and we appreciate the DPW and all the hard work that they do around town. We really, really do. But for 7 years, 6 weeks out of the year, every year we have to buy water. We have to go to friends' houses that have wells and fill up jugs. The wash machine stinks. The dishwasher smells. The shower smells. Oddly enough, in 7 years, the only year that this didn't happen was last year during the drought. So I can not understand why during a drought it wouldn't be atrocious water, but that was the one year that we did not get smelly, stinky, undrinkable yellow water. If that means anything to anybody, you know, for scientific research. Another thing to echo in George's statement is we don't have low water rates. Like, I have friends in towns surrounding here that pay half the prices that we do. So it's painful that Brian and I decided, after getting that letter about the chemicals being found in the water that we decided to put in what cost us a system that cost us $3,000, and then we had to turn around and pay our $400 water sewer bill. So that is upsetting. And to your point about seeking information from people who are testing their wells individually, I think that's a great idea. I didn't see it on your website, but I get a whole lot of emails for other things going in town. Is there a way for you to send that out to the town and ask that people submit their results?
Yep, we'll get on that. We can ask to send the email blast out and everything, for
'Cause,
that.
yeah, I think you would get a lot of responses that way. I don't, I go onto the town website, when I need to find something or look up a phone number. I don't often see things like that, but I get emails all the time for things happening in town.
Okay, thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And my last question is, of everybody on the select board, I'm wondering how many people are on town water.
I think we all,
I'm
you're
on,
not. I'm on town water.
I'm on town water.
I think Jen and I are not on town water. Yeah, I'm on a well, and I think Tom is on town water. So it's 3-2, I think, town water and not.
Just curious. I tried to have, I took a sample of our water before we put the system in, and I had it sitting on the counter, and I tried to encourage Brian to bring it with him tonight, but he politely declined my suggestion.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
I appreciate the feedback, and we'll get the email blast sent out. I think a few years ago, there was conversation, and I think the DPW director at the time had looked into the town, maybe the town administrator and DPW at the time had looked into what it would cost to tie into the Quabbin. And the tie-in costs were astronomical, and then the cost for the water usage to the ratepayers was going to be even atrocious by our standards. I mean, if we hear that you feel our rates are high now, it was going to be much, much higher. There's still ongoing work, and I think Austin is working on some options as well as the Director Klofsky, but it's not, nothing is cheap by any
Yeah, no,
means, so.
I definitely understand that, but like to George's point, there's grants for everything. Like, and that ties back to, I think, Brian's point of maybe if we had a board for water, we could have somebody on the board maybe assigned to looking into a grant for water. I mean, after, everything in Michigan, there has to be federally appropriated funds for clean drinking water.
We're upgrading lines. We just had a water break in front of our house yesterday too, so.
Yeah. Austin, I don't know if you have anything to add. I think that was one of the concerns, was that there could be ARPA money to tie in for a secondary water source somewhere, somehow. But then the cost to the ratepayers was not going to be any less. And there would still need to be significant additional infrastructure upgrades as well that may or may not be able to be covered grant-wise and everything. So there's a lot
What
of
else?
pieces, for sure.
Like, well, it's gonna cost, I'm sure, but something has to change.
And I think it was mindfulness as far as not having the ratepayers' water rates double or triple for whatever the tie-in was for their usage. Sorry,
If I can add.
Yeah.
Okay, what I would like to do is, one of the recipients that has been keeping in touch with me, I had a text from last Thursday, and, oh boy. Okay, and the text is, and I quote, "It is definitely better, I'd say. Toilets and sinks actually starting to look better. Still a slight smell, but very faint." Now, this person lives down on Brunel Drive, which is at the bottom of the hill where they've been working on Palmagussit Road all year long. And so he has gone through essentially a double whammy here with not only the town situation, but the restructuring and water main breaks and so on and so forth that have gone on down there. So at this point in time, as of last Thursday, he was a little bit happier with the way things were than he had been for a while.
Yeah, no offense, but Yeah, ours was great after we put the $3,000 water system in too. So, I know every year it's just a matter of 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. It does improve. It's not forever, but it's pretty much infuriating at this point, especially when it seems that our quarterly water bill seems to be due right around when I'm, trucking gallons of water home from the store. So it's
Yeah.
frustrating.
We hear, Austin, George, give me a minute. Austin, do you have anything that you wanted to add, or we can let George speak?
The resident can go and I can talk if you'd like.
George, go ahead.
I mean, I don't wanna speak for anybody else, but I'd pay more money for clean drinking water. You know, because quite frankly, I'm paying more money for it anyway, because I have to go to the store, or more specifically, my wife has to go to the store and get water. And when you add in all of the gas, all of the expense of the water and everything, it's not cheap. It's gonna be the same, it's gonna add up to the same amount as you guys jacking our water bill again for putting in a better system. And I mean, the ARPA Act, hold on, I'm sorry. The Infrastructure Act that just got passed, that has all the money in it for grants. Has anybody so I know you guys looked into this years ago, but all of this grant money just came out in the last year and a half. So who's been looking into, who's been looking into the grant money for this now? And that's why I agree with Brian. There is a need for a water board. There is a need for somebody specific that can hold not only the DPW accountable, but the town accountable, really, for making sure that its residents have clean drinking water. I mean, Christine said she's been here 7 years. We've been here 10. I mean, come on. How long do you guys need to work on this? They put a guy on the moon in less time. I'm sorry to be getting aggravated, but I like, no joke. I'm a brain tumor survivor. The last thing I need to be doing is drinking lousy water. I'm sick enough. I don't need to get any sicker, guys. So please hear what we're saying and do something about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate all the feedback. I candidly, in the 6 months that I've been here, I've learned more about water, whether it's coming from above or we're putting it in your house, than I initially expected taking this job. We certainly have a lot of challenges with our water infrastructure, starting from our single water source up to the water treatment plant, from the distribution system to the lines going and servicing each of your houses. We unfortunately are dealing with a situation where we have had years of significant lack of investment in our water infrastructure. Just to give you reference, you walk into a water treatment plant, I'd be happy to give any of you a tour. It's almost like you're walking into something that was built 20-something years ago, and it's as if we did nothing to it. That's a substantial problem. Right now, we have 3 filters in the water treatment plant. We're down 1 because, again, years and years of, candidly, no attention paid to it. So we're down a filter right now in one of the rainiest, worst summers in terms of rainfall, also impacting the water that's flowing to all of your homes. So it's great to hear that there's obviously some attention to this, because this, if anything, highlights the need for investing in the infrastructure, whether it's starting again from the plant, identifying a second source, or talking about the pipes that are in the ground now. We had a substantial break at water main break at Maple and Main, and the plans for that infrastructure at that intersection dated back to the late 1800s, to give you reference. To give you also reference, to replace all of the sewer pipe in the town of Rutland would be $10.4 million right now. That's not even including water. couple years ago, the town borrowed $2 million to replace water main infrastructure. It did 3 roads, one of which only did not even half of Miles Road. To Leah's point, or to the chair's point, my apologies, we need a substantial investment, and I do agree. There are a lot of funding opportunities available at the federal and state level. Fortunately, right now, so we have looked into those through our engineer and our DPW. Unfortunately, a lot of those federal funds are dealing with PFAS, which is another obviously challenging chemical that's found in a lot of water systems. We do not have substantial, actually really, I think detectable readings of PFAS. However, we still have water issues. So right now, we can essentially apply for very low interest loans. So again, it's not free money, it's cheaper money, but we still need to borrow money just to be able to upgrade our infrastructure. Something I think the Capital Select Board, Finance and Town Meeting and the ratepayers will have to consider. But certainly we're working on a capital plan to look at all of our infrastructure, recognizing that especially not even just relating to the summer and the water issues, but just our infrastructure altogether needs a lot of attention. We will be presenting in the next couple of weeks a substantial capital request to all these boards and committees into the town, highlighting the infrastructure needs just for our water and sewer operations. So I would appreciate the residents that have spoken here tonight. I'd appreciate your continued support for investing in this infrastructure. And certainly if you identify any funding resources that maybe we missed, please feel free to always share those as well. I'd be, as I mentioned to Lou, happy to take advantage of any opportunity we can to get some free money to offset the ratepayers as well. But I do obviously, also want to, empathize with all of your situations. I can understand that this has been a challenging 10, 7, X number of years living in the town with a challenging water quality. But we are working to try to make improvements where necessary. It's gonna take a while. Certainly, it doesn't happen overnight, but something that, especially this summer, for me personally, has highlighted a significant need to make an investment there.
George, you still have your hand up. Do you have anything to add or, okay. That's okay. So thank you all for showing up.
Sorry,
No,
I
it's
was muted, sorry. I was just gonna say, whomever was just speaking hit right on the head with the infrastructure. And this is gonna lead into a whole separate debate, but the infrastructure in this town is so outdated and so taxed, yet we keep allowing people to build. When is it gonna stop? That's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the residents that came to speak on this. We've had conversations, meetings after meetings about it, starting since August, I think, that every year it happens. And I think this year we've made some dedicated efforts to try to at least better pinpoint the issues, and really look at options that we have. Again, nothing unfortunately is overnight and nothing is inexpensive. And so those are.
So on Brian's point for a water board, how could he go about starting something like that? Is there any input on that?
So right now the select board is the Board of Public Works, and one of the roles is as water commissioners. As far as separating that out, there's been conversation through our bylaw review and everything, the pros or cons or ways to do that. Austin, I don't know if you have any input as far as specifically pulling out water commissioners or.
I mean, that's a governance structure question. I think that looking at the bylaws and formalizing what you want the structure of your local government to look like. Board's talking about that right now, so if you have recommendations for how you want the especially from a utilities perspective, if you'd like to split out those responsibilities, I think that would be something that from a resident's perspective, if you have a recommendation to the board, I would certainly try to formalize that for the board to consider.
And it was voted, I think we learned in the seventies that the select board would become the Board of Public Works and take on those roles and responsibilities. To separate out then is, I think, town meeting votes and everything also, just, yeah, special legislation and everything. So there is a process, but it's not just us sitting here and saying it is so, unfortunately, so.
There's so many other towns that have separated out, so, and I think it's good, so they can focus on that one specific issue.
I think there's pros and cons to it for sure, and it's a consideration, so. But it was one of the big things we talked about in our Board of Public Works bylaw conversation, what made sense or why town voted in the seventies and how things have changed or not changed and what it would look like to have additional elected boards, when already we struggle to have boards and commissions filled, whether they're elected or appointed, so that was one of the struggles. So thank you all, we appreciate it, and we'll definitely keep it on our radar and agenda moving forward. You know, I think there's been a concerted effort to really look at viable options, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Are you doing anything?
I'm
Sure.
just here to listen to
Oh.
elections.
Oh,
Feel free, Scott.
Fair enough. Scott Langer, 73 Palmagussit. So this is great after a water main conversation. Do we have any updates on that water main on 56? They did, when I was in Maine, they did insulate my connector. They did insulate across the street. Do we know how deep it is?
Yes, so they conducted a test pit in front of your property, the other property. The coverage right now is about 50.5 inches.
That's at my connection, where they just did?
And also, just to point out,
'Cause
your particular.
it was 32 inches up the street.
So just to point out, your particular connection also is currently housed on your driveway, so the concern with, yes, it is.
Next to my driveway.
So regardless, it didn't change the coverage that would impact your connection. So that was one of the main concerns that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago or months ago, that the concern would be the connections. They insulated it just as a security caution. However, with the final pavement that will go in the spring, they believe it'll put it just about to 57 inches of coverage, which I recognize is still 3 inches short of what you're considering code.
Code's 5 feet.
Yeah, so it'd be 60 inches. But I did
I
mention
wasn't worried about my curb stop itself, cause that didn't change.
Yep.
It's where's the water main?
your connection, but yeah, so that's what I mentioned, it's
So it's
the,
50 inches in front of my house is what you're
50.5
telling me.
inches, correct.
But up in front of my wall, in front of my hill is 32 inches.
No.
Yes, the first test pit they did, I have the email, it was 32 inches to top of pavement.
No.
Yes,
So that was before they came back and, yes, it was.
the different spots.
That was before they came back and conducted several test pits. We actually had Weston and Sampson here. We actually had the company that installed it back. The company that
Yeah,
installed it came
right.
back and installed the insulation as well.
Where were the other test pits? Cause the asphalt was dug up at my house and across the street.
I don't know where the other test pits were. That was a couple weeks ago again at this point.
Did not, just wanna walk up the street with me?
I have,
when it's not raining.
yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, everywhere they dug, they did mine the other, well, they've already collapsed, of course. Oh yeah, they already collapsed where they dug the pits. I walk the street every day, so these other test pits, to find out where the water main is, I don't know, must have mysteriously just fixed itself.
So
Anyways.
I can say at this point, we've spent more staff time than we honestly expected or planned. And also costs of bringing out our town engineers and bringing back the previous contractor. Because the previous contractor was also concerned, if it was too high, he doesn't wanna come back next year and
Well,
fix
the
it.
problem is you're talking about water mains, and again, you did test pits before, and the one that was originally in front of my thing, you sent it to me. This is before right after they paved it. No, right before they paved it, the day before they paved it, it was 32 inches.
It is the universal opinion of MassDOT, the contractor, the previous contractor that installed the water main, our engineer, and our DPW, that there will not be an issue with freezing the water main or the service connections.
Okay. Interesting.
especially the water main, that's a substantial, that's a 12-inch water main that services
There's a couple,
multiple
okay, so
neighborhoods.
there's a couple engineers that are on a couple boards that I'm on. And they thought about it. They said the problem is on a 0-degree cycle of 7 to 10 days, how that's set up, there is no flow at night. You'll pop a joint. If it's above 4 feet. I mean, it's a known issue. I mean, again, same difference, you're saying they did multiple test pits since they put down the binder coat. There's one at my house and there's one across the street. I don't see any others, so who did them?
And they did 3 or 4 test pits on that
Interesting.
day, same day.
Okay, interesting. That's fine. It's on record, that's all that matters. That's one. You did send me all the information about the road. Whatever, interesting. I already had that. I could pull that up myself. But the spoils pile they piled next to the ball field is all the dirt they took off that road. They didn't haul half that dirt back in to put a base in. The day before they put the binder coat down, they had to regrade the road because it washed out. And you're gonna tell me there's a foot of base in there by the code is paving that? They didn't put a foot of base in before it rained. Again, is what it is. You've seen it, they had to grade the road. The day before they paved it. It's kind of a fleecing of the town. I mean, where's the slips that they picked up stuff to put down? Nobody's watching it. What I've understood is the state inspectors watch a job, they penalize them on the next job. We all live here, road's gonna fall apart. It's already sinking again. In other spots they didn't do. So that's enough of 56. Next question. What's up with Molten Mill Road? I was gone. I understand there was I know there's a restraining order issued against from Camara to one of the other neighbors. They got a fist fight because Mr. Camara is now saying it's not a through street. He's putting up it's not a through street signs. This is an ongoing issue that comes up every 5 years. They get chapter 90 money on the whole road. It is a town road. We plow the road. Who's putting the signs up? They do nothing to Mr. Camara. They actually had a physical altercation on Miles Road that's going for a restraining order. When's it gonna stop? They tell him, I have a house on Molten Mill Road too. That's my apartments. He comes out and tells them they can't go. The police department, which knows better, told my tenants they can't go that way. It's a town road. I told them go that way. So go that way. It's been going on, I've been here 20 years. And we go back and forth, and Mr. Camara put, no through street signs up. And there was like I say, physical altercation. When's it gonna stop? 7 years ago, he chased my wife around with a chainsaw. Nothing gets done.
So I don't think that this is public comment.
Well, the road, again, it's
Good
public,
question.
it's public comment because it's town road, but nobody does anything about it.
So
You let a resident put signs up that says it's not a throughway on a town road. You let them take the sign out down the other side that has a name on it, nothing gets done. It's leading now to physical violence because of lack of action.
So have you had this individual conversation with DPW or town administrator or public safety? Because I understand the concern that it's a public road, but a lot of this other conversation I don't feel should be in public comment. So we can look into Molten Mill Road and the public road aspect of that.
I just have one question to the road. Does this road go by that gentleman's house? So it's a road that goes right past his house? Okay. Thank you.
One other quick question, just because it seems to be an ongoing. What's the guarantee on the water main on Miles concerning they can't get it to see? How long do they guarantee that after the fact?
Miles, that's.
I feel bad for them because they're a good contractor.
It's gonna, thank you for doing that, you're stealing thunder from my update, but Miles,
we're talking about water main, so we might as well just keep going there.
And that should be a relatively quick and easy job. It's only 1,000 feet of water
Right.
main replacement. Candidly, what we're thinking is it's something wrong with the pipe that will need to be replaced. There's been concern that there's air in the pipe. We've bled the line several times. We've tried to conduct pressure testing for the past 2 weeks and it
They
keeps
can't get it,
failing.
right,
Yeah.
and they know what they're doing, that's what I don't understand. But I
So
mean,
we're,
what's the
so we're
warranty on
thinking
that?
possibly, possibly some sort of a gasket or some sort of
Right.
valve issue that is defective.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that means it's gonna take a little bit more time to track exactly where the problem is, but I actually spent the lengthy time today talking with our engineer on site to figure out what the issue is. And ultimately, we'll have a gas testing company here on Wednesday to, explore one other option. I think the final and worst case scenario is they quite literally
Dig it back up.
dig it back up and check everything.
Okay, just curious.
Is there any other public comment? Hearing none?
This is Christine again, sorry. Will there be an update coming out about the testing on Cheryl Drive of the water? Just to go back to that, we got that letter a little while back saying that the tetra, whatever the chemical was found. Just looking for an update on that.
I think, if I may, I think in our meeting maybe a month or so ago, there was an update. I think Austin provided an update, and this is some of the information that's on the website that we'll send the email blast around. I think the subsequent testing has shown the levels have come down below the level of what did they call it, level of concern or?
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was like,
Can I just add to
Go for it.
So, the test since then, since we've bled the line, I think it's 5 gallons a minute, we've bled the line after that initial reading, has gone down below why can't I think of the word? Essentially, level where we have to, take action. However, we need to get the average down, so we have to continue to test monthly and provide a quarterly report to all those that we sent the letter to. So you will receive another notification just providing an update, very similar to the letter that you received in July. And that's through Mass DEP regulations that we have to continue providing until the average is down below that detectable level.
okay, so we'll continue to get communications, another letters to be coming.
Yes. You'll probably see more notifications than you'd probably like to, candidly, just because the regulations stipulate a required timeline that we have to continue testing and notifying. So even in, it's gonna be several months of, especially if we continue bleeding at this level, several months of readings that are well below it, but that's just to try to get the average down below that level. We also, just one thing I forgot to mention, once that new filter is back online, which we're hoping is within the next week or so, we will be flushing the entire system again, just to mitigate some of the areas. Cheryl Ann obviously was one area, but we have a lot of dead ends in town that also we want to make sure have the same levels of attention paid for some of those findings for some of those chemicals in the water lines. So we'll be doing a town-wide flush within the next month or so as well.
And I do see, that you guys are down there doing the flushing and everything, and I saw that the pipes down on the trail that is at the end of Sherilyn have the pipe that's continually running to flush has a meter on it now. Do those gallons get, offset so that they're recorded so that bill isn't going out to, like, how is that billed, all that water that's going through the line?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that the different, so obviously, every house has their own meter, and we read the meters for those. The excess is essentially absorbed in the overall budget. So because we need to your point, we need to keep track of how much water we're losing by our own action, right? So we it's hard to measure
Right,
water
you don't
main
think there's
water main
something
leaks,
to leak from.
but this isn't
Yeah.
a leak, right? This is a forced bleeding of water through the through the water main, so we end up paying for the difference between the ratepayers' bills and then the overall cost.
So it's essentially spread out
Yeah. Yep.
across the ratepayers.
Yes.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, and actually, that's a great point. We're talking a lot about water, but it's great. So we, every year we conduct testing of areas where we believe there to be significant water main leaks. And through our annual operating budget, we're looking to attack and repair those leaks. So one of the ones that we knew about for the longest time was Maple and Main. There was another one, forgive me, I wanna say it's Sunnyside, maybe it's in the area of Sunnyside where there was a substantial leak as well that we're repairing those as well. So that will help as well with, to your point about the ratepayers paying the difference for kind of the water that's being used. So that's kind of part of our annual operations and maintenance plan to attack some of the water main leaks with the goal of bringing the overall usage of water in line with what we're sending out for bills for the ratepayers to accommodate.
You're in a difficult job, so I do appreciate your, the work that you're doing. It's just because we sound upset, I do appreciate it though.
If you know anyone who wants to work for the water department, we are hiring.
So I've heard.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll keep
One
my
other
ears
thing about the
open.
chemicals that are in the specifically Cheryl water that letter was about. I mean, we can't be constantly flushing. There's gotta be a long-term solution, whether it's, connecting to Inwood or
Yeah.
down to the Blueberry neighborhood, you're, just to keep that circulating.
Best thing to do is to loop the system, so, because that's throwing good well, arguably, maybe, hopefully in the future, good water, that can't be used, so looping it would be the best way, that's something we'd like to do as well.
It's the lining of the pipes that, the vinyl lining that's leaching the chemicals.
Yeah, and that was a very popular pipe in the 70s and 80s, and, unfortunately Rutland was, that was the pipe that was used, so, identifying that pipe throughout the town and trying to get that on our plan too as well, something we're paying attention to.
Thank you all for the feedback, because, I understand the frustration and anger, and I appreciate the feedback coming in a positive, communicative manner, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move in. We had a 6 PM public hearing scheduled, so I will open the public hearing for a common vic license for Schultz Farm at 163 Maple Ave. We have documentation for an application for Schultz Farm doing business as Eastview Farm. This is common vic, which is food.
If you have, if you serve and prepare food and if you have seating.
I assume we have the application, we have some of the supporting document that all the necessary permits and inspections have been done.
Yes.
And everybody,
Bless you.
Thank you.
and all of the required signatures have been obtained.
Yes.
There were no concerns from any of the departments or anything?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? This is also the public hearing, so we will hear from the public if anyone has anything as well. Does the board have any questions, comments, or concerns? I would take a motion then to close the hearing. Motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second,
Roll call, Harry. This is just to
Sec-
close the hearing, sir.
yeah, second and I.
That's an aye.
Ledger I, Whitman I. Then I would take a motion to approve the common vic license for Schultz Farm doing business as Eastview Farm as presented.
I will make a motion to approve the common vic license for Schultz Farm, doing business as Eastview Farm as presented in the application.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Questions, comments, concerns? Harry, roll call.
Second and I.
That's an aye.
Ledger I.
Whitman, I wish them great success. I think it's been a little bit of a tough few months for them with the health concerns and everything, so hopefully this is an up and up. We will move in then to the town administrator update. Austin, you've been on the spot a lot tonight, have at it.
Good evening, thank you, members of the board. I have a brief in terms of the amount of slides, but looking to talk a little bit more about one of the topics that's listed on the agenda item. But just to quickly roll through budget and finance. The town accountant is preparing to submit free cash to DOR and retained earnings for our enterprise funds. Overall, revenues for FY '23 look very good. And also there's a little bit of turn back in some of the town departments. We'll have obviously that number for the board and finance committee once free cash is certified by DOR. Departments have submitted their capital requests. We are currently reviewing and formatting those requests to present to CIPC for them to consider and begin their very exciting process. And before I talk about the audit, just want to give an update. This is where we are in terms of the general fund and water sewer enterprise fund in terms of year-to-date expenditures, right around in line with just over.
Question for the town. When you look at the year-to-date expenditures, did you go back and look at previous years of how the general fund is performing to those, like even last year?
No, I did not. I can certainly do that for future updates. That is a good practice that I know some other towns do. You know, I'm still curious. I think, you know, candidly, why the water and sewer fund is you know, lower than being a quarter way through. Candidly, I think that's just how we're classifying some of our expenditures, especially on the DPW side. I'm thinking there may be some expenditures that may be, you know, right now being charged to the general fund highway budget. But also we are down still a couple of people for the water and sewer departments as well.
My question related to what's ahead of us? What are the surprises out there? If we're only running at 27% on our general fund, and here we are 5 months in, what are we missing? What's back behind us last year that is gonna all of a sudden will be at 50%?
So I don't know if these costs will get you to 50%, but some of our benefit allocations or budgets did not account for new positions. So thinking about new employees that may or may not take health insurance, so something that we need to pay attention to on those line items to see, especially if new employees are coming on and they opt in to the health insurance. Those don't account for costs associated with our pension contribution as well.
Okay.
We also bringing in new people. We've purchased some new supplies for those people. Those are some items that weren't previously budgeted for or accounted for when preparing this budget. And one thing I just do want to highlight, as we'll be talking about this at the next meeting, currently we are paying for our monthly expenses for our internet services, and also some of our energy costs are being paid through ARPA. Not a good practice to use operating expenditures with a one-time funding source, so that is also not incorporated in this year's budget. Now, that's not gonna create a 50% expense allocation, but something as we're talking about FY '25, I think we should bring that back into the general fund as a good practice as well.
I have two things if I may. I think one thing also is some of the yearly expenditures might not hit they might hit the calendar year, the beginning of the calendar year also for some of the renewals. I'm not 100% sure instead of the fiscal year. So we may see what seems to be a bigger jump at the start of the calendar year because certain things hit at the calendar year versus a fiscal year or vice versa.
I guess I'm looking from, here we are in October and getting into January, because that's when we have the new fire chief, or the deputy chief starting. So his pay's gonna kick in then in the general fund. So I'm just curious, if we're at 27% now, I don't wanna see us at, all of a sudden, boom, we're in April or May, and all of a sudden we're at 99.9% or something. So
Well,
that's
yeah,
what
so
I'm saying,
even-
what is that big out there?
So, I mean, that example, the deputy fire chief, essentially right now, we're saving money by him not starting.
That was a budgeted item.
That was a budgeted item already, so, but also, bringing in new people also, costs a little bit more money sometimes than what we budget for because of the competitive market. Some of the new positions, we've had to pay a little bit more to get them into the town. So from a, overall total spend perspective, I think we'll be in a good spot, but generally from my experience in previous communities and monitoring their budgets, they do kind of follow the 25, 50, 75%, with the exception obviously of the upfront retirement contribution and some other kind of one-offs.
That's already in there, right?
That's already in there.
Okay.
But that's why we're, slightly higher than the 25%, so.
I had one question, Austin, and you might not know this, but as we are looking to getting free cash certified and that return, is there a way to determine how much of it is kind of through the budgeting process as far as returns from town departments versus additional revenue received? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's a
Because
part
I
of
think-
our calculation of free cash is excess revenues, but also turn back of expenditures,
Yeah,
so.
because I think that's important.
Yeah, we certainly know, and that's part of the accountant's calculation. She provided me FY '23 revenue the other day, and if I was smart, I would do the math, and the number that we have minus the revenue would be our turn back from town departments. But certainly we can give an idea. But that information will also be included in the FY '25 budget. In terms of FY '23 actuals, what was spent for the board and the finance committee to see as well.
Thank you.
So the items that have been approved at town meetings, the articles that are, and the money that's been set aside, that has nothing to do with free cash.
Correct. You're talking about like warrant articles for projects, things like that, correct?
Right, that haven't been spent for years.
Correct. Unless they're closed out by town meeting, then that falls to free cash.
Okay,
Thanks, Austin.
good.
I've been mentioning for the past couple of updates that the audit was ongoing. The FY '22 audit is now complete. We published the audit as well as previous year's audits on the town website, on the town administrator's page. I won't go through every page. I'll candidly, I think for tonight's discussion, certainly I'd welcome the community and the board members to read the audit and the audited financial statements online, but I figure I'll roll through some of the findings. This year, there were two findings in the audit, and candidly, one of these findings that it's my understanding has been in previous years' audits for the past couple of years. The first is issues with reconciliation of cash receipts and receivables. This is something that is especially a best practice from DOR and just overall accounting standards to routinely, whether it's monthly, quarterly, reconcile those three categories, cash receipts and receivables. The auditor noted in the management letter that, and this is not related to FY '22, but they just noted it because they were in the building, that for FY '23, cash was not reconciled from somewhere back to October. This has been a challenge due to turnover and staffing in the treasurer, collector, and accounting office. Becky especially has been tasked with doing a lot. She's essentially a finance director and a couple other titles. And that's certainly been a challenge for her. The audit did not note any irregularities or errors. However, it is a best practice to make sure that you're routinely reconciling your cash receipts and receivables, just to reduce the risk of errors or irregularities for your receipts and disbursements. So Becky and the treasurer collector's office and Donna the accountant believe that they're at an adequate level for staffing to be able to improve the reconciliations of these three, but also especially the accountant with our new VADAR system is instituting some additional internal controls to make that reconciliation process much easier. Now that we're on VADAR for the entire financial management system, we're not transferring in between SoftWrite and VADAR. It's one system that, with the click of a button, can be reconciled. So the town's response to that finding was due to staffing and also improvements in technology. We believe that finding will not be an issue in future years. Any questions on?
So you believe that the town has addressed the issue of the reconciliation case?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything, Karen?
Do you know where it's been balanced up to now?
For this current year? Yeah, so I believe July, I think was reconciled for this, for this week. So,
I'm just gonna say it from an accounting standpoint, if you don't tie out cash, it leaves, you could have a problem that you don't know, and if you leave it for 4 or 5 months, that problem gets a lot bigger. And this town doesn't have the leeway for that problem to keep going.
Right.
And the reason why the accountants look into the next fiscal year is because they're trying to tie out everything from the previous fiscal year to see what clears. That's normal auditing practice.
yeah, and without a question, I mean, especially when we're looking to, find out what our free cash is, it's best practice and prudent for us to make sure that we're on top of those, so we totally recognize that and believe we're in a good position to, so we're not several months behind like in previous years. The second finding was improving controls over the budgeting process. So the auditors noted in viewing the tax recap for fiscal year '22, there was a request from the town for a $300,000 override, essentially for the Wachusett Regional School District assessment. That override passed at town meeting but was defeated at the ballot. However, in preparing the tax recap on page 4 in the raise and appropriate section, that $300,000 was included in raise and appropriate. Now, that did not add $300,000 to the tax levy. That's something that the town cannot do. The state does that. We have to provide them all the documentation that it passed at both the election and town meeting. However, it's just something that we need to improve in terms of our budgeting process, in terms of preparing the budget, preparing the tax recap, making sure that when we're working with the accountant, treasurer, collector, clerk, and preparing and submitting that tax recap, that we have all the adequate numbers. Now, essentially what happened is we still had the assessment, so we paid it through the rest of the budget. We thankfully had $300,000 with the rest of the budget to be able to pay for the school assessment. What we should have done, obviously, with the defeat at the ballot, we should have went to a special town meeting and raised the additional $300,000. We didn't. Thankfully, it was covered through expenditures with the rest of the budget, but just something that the auditor noted just to improve our future budget process. It's also my opinion that because we're starting the budget process early, we'll be in a much better position to make sure that we are adequately preparing the tax recap, and it's in line with all of our recommendations that were approved at town meeting at the election, especially for this year where we did have a successful override and presented a successful budget to town meeting.
If I may, I think some of the confusion for us, especially being part of a 5-member regional school district and with the regional agreement that if 4 of the 5-member towns pass the budget, that 4th member town or the 5th member town that defeated the budget is required to pay that fund. So even if it goes to town meeting and is continually defeated, we, as the 5th town that didn't pay for it, still has to fund it somehow. That's the regional agreement. So I think to Austin's point is streamlining how that is done and how it's communicated, whether it's an additional special town meeting or whether the warrant article at this annual town meeting can be worded such that everything is covered regardless, is best practice for transparency as well.
Right.
Is that?
Good idea. Yep, definitely.
Questions, Karen? No, okay. All set with the audit? Certainly if the board or members of the public or finance committee have additional questions once they review the very interesting audited financial statements. There's actually, believe it or not, I like reading audits. There's a lot of interesting information in there once you dive in. Especially, I was taught that you read from the back, start with the notes, and then you move forward. It's actually pretty interesting.
How many pages on the audit?
Don't
60,
ask.
70?
No, it was hundreds of pages.
Yeah, there's a reason why we didn't give you all a printed copy.
Not a page.
No, it's 68 pages.
Oh, I lied, I think I'm thinking of something
68
else.
pages.
That's the audit,
68
pages?
Yes, sir.
Ignore me.
Easy read.
Yeah,
Pay by the page?
yeah, yeah. we did.
Big words for us, you know.
All right, rolling through just a couple of personnel items. I mentioned that we were conducting final interviews for the human resources coordinator. Happy to say we made an offer and was accepted to Allison Mitchell, comes to us from the town of Nantucket. She also happens to be a Rutland resident. She'll be starting next Tuesday. Very excited to have her on board. And we also have a new town planner, John Charbonneau, who currently is the assistant town administrator / economic development director in the town of Milford. John also has over 20 years of experience in the planning industry, town of Rentham, Stoughton, some other communities. A lot of good work in other communities, and I think will be a valuable asset to the town planning board and town departments in the overall community as well.
Questions on?
Sure.
On the first hire. Who does that person report to? You?
That's a position the town administrator's office.
Okay. And what about the town planner?
To me as well.
Okay, so you're the primary, nobody else. In other words, any planning, everything else, he has to run by you.
Well, the town planner is an interesting position because it reports to the town administrator, but obviously serves as staff liaison to the planning board. Also, the previous planner did a lot of work with the economic development committee and some other boards and commissions as well. Merely because especially some of their work is very much relative to their day-to-day. But from a reporting structure, it's to.
You oversee him.
But certainly the planning board, can certainly ask the planner to look into some things as well.
Right.
Okay. We also, I'm very happy to say that we have had some good luck looking for DPW laborers, truck drivers, equipment operators. We hired two very good new operators and workers for the DPW, Joe Caruso and Chris Ogilvy. I mentioned, I think in previous updates, that one of the challenges with DPW operators is they need a CDL, they need a hoisting license. Both of these new employees have those requirements so they can jump right into the positions. Joe started, I think last week or a couple weeks ago, and has already jumped right in and got a lot of work done already. So no need for, taking them in the truck somewhere, driving them, or having them go to school. They have everything we need. Chris will be starting in the next couple of weeks. And still ongoing recruitments for the DPW mechanic, police lieutenant, full-time firefighter, paramedic, and treasurer collector as well. Some of the projects, I almost am thinking about taking the parking lot out of this update, but I'm kind of just sticking with it, hoping. But Mother Nature has been a substantial challenge for finishing the parking lot. It's supposed to be paved last Saturday. If you were around last Saturday, you know that it rained. Pavers do not like to work in the rain, so it will be, it's currently on schedule for this Saturday, but I'm seeing that there's potentially weather coming for this Saturday, so I'll let you know in the next update when that'll happen. We talked a little bit about Miles Road. That's definitely been a challenge, certainly working with the contractor and Weston and Sampson to provide a new solution. We'll give you an update probably through email after the testing this week to give you an idea of what that's looking like for Miles Road. The trench repair for Wachusett Street is still ongoing. They now have to let the repair settle, and then paving will follow shortly thereafter. I had an opportunity to meet with the Bay Path Vocational School Superintendent Brenner to tour the facility, introduce myself, and discuss ongoing programs and initiatives. They were preparing for homecoming, playing my high school Monty Tech, so that was a little bit of an interesting discussion, who was gonna win that. Bay Path usually wins that, unfortunately, but I think it was a great opportunity. Now, I've been to Bay Path when I was a student, but it was interesting to take a full tour of the facility. Certainly, I'm a product of vocational education, so I'm supporter of, and I believe in, you know, what you get from having a vocational education in Bay Path is one of the best. And certainly it was exciting to see, especially going into some of the shops and trades and seeing, you know, our future workforce right there, which I think was very interesting and made me feel very good about the future.
With the upgrades, do you feel they are state-of-the-art?
Yes, yes. And so much so, when I sent out the capital plan and discussed it with Superintendent Brenner, he said, we're good. We don't need anything right now. So, and they also do a very good job in terms of their capital equipment. They absorbed a lot of those costs directly in their budget. So walking into their shops and facilities, they have plenty of space. They have the equipment they need, which Monty Tech gets a lot of grants because they don't have the ability to do that in their budget. So they have a really good operation there.
Great.
So.
How many students do we have going there?
Oh, you had to ask, I don't know. Karen, do you happen to know? No.
Do you happen to know, Tamika? You know everything.
I wanna say it's 9.
9?
No, we have more than, so last year there were, I think, 8 to 10 freshmen that went in.
Okay,
This year, there's, I think, 20-ish that have gone in.
that they've taken from our town?
Yeah, so I
Wow.
think Rutland has allocated, is it 70?
I don't pay attention to any of those numbers because they're just lovely to deal with, that I don't have to pay attention to the
Yeah.
numbers. They're transparent and they're fantastic with their information.
So
Don't
I
have to
think-
commit it to memory to hold them to it, cause they stick with it.
So I think roughly, and I don't wanna misspeak, so it's all generalization, I think generally Rutland is allocated about 70 spots.
Yeah.
And historically, we have not filled those positions. Now that's 9 through 12, so I don't know off the top of my head how many students graduated or matriculated elsewhere, whether they went back to Wachusett or somewhere else. So I don't know what the difference is, but
I was
yeah.
curious number because for those students that go there, they're getting a first-class education. I mean, in vocational, absolutely. So I think that's great that the town does support it like that.
And candidly, vocational schools receive so much attention and students that would like to attend that, you know, unfortunately, they have to have waiting lists. And that's a statewide issue, where there's a substantial amount of people that are on the waiting list for
Always
those,
has been.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
So candidly, I mean, there's been probably a demand for many years for more capacity or new schools across the entire Commonwealth. I know the former Senator Goey, just before she took her new position, did an op-ed in, I think, the Telegram, also calling for Central Massachusetts to have an agricultural vocational school, which there currently is one. I think there's one in somewhere in the Boston area and then Northampton. But you think about, you know, Rutland especially, agricultural geographic center of Massachusetts, there definitely probably is a demand for even agricultural.
We used to have a great program at Wachusett. It got absorbed because of MCAS.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
dreaded MCAS destroyed that, vocational education at Wachusett, woodworking and all of those because of MCAS.
And I think Wachusett is making an effort to bring back some of the vocational pieces also, but
I'm so happy to hear that.
it's,
I taught there for 18 years. Fred Warren and Charlie Campbell, God rest his soul, God rest the both of their souls, ran a fabulous program down in Wachusett. Our town moderator is a graduate of that system, and look at his operation.
And just wanna let the board know that, I believe in being involved in some professional associations. I'm a member of the Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts, STAM. I'm happy to say that I was appointed by the president to the program and legislative affairs subcommittees representing the community and the greater Rutland region. Some of the things that we're working on is advocating for some of the small town issues. Some of the issues that we have are obviously Proposition 2.5. Procurement is a big challenge for small towns, especially the size of Rutland, so we are working with our state counterparts to propose some reforms to those, to that legislation.
Austin,
to
one
make
thing,
things-
it's probably on the radar, but I know I've talked at some of the MMA meetings also about the challenge of the matching piece for small towns. It's not, larger towns or larger communities are often better well-funded and able to provide, easier to provide matching funds, whether that's through engineering or staff time or whatever, but for the small towns, the free money that's out there is not so easy for the small towns to get because there's a barrier to even applying, because there needs to be the engineering or that matching commitment, and when we don't have that extra to budget, so.
Yeah, there's Ann Goby now is the Director of Rural Affairs for the Commonwealth. And she's mentioned that several times already, just that especially grants that are competitive become much less competitive, or the ability to compete for the smaller towns. Whether it is especially now at the federal level, we don't meet income thresholds or economic justice thresholds or the matching requirements. So she has proposed in some of the new applications incorporate they call it a small town or rural town factor in terms of the scoring. So yes, while we may not have in our census tracts an economic justice census tract, we do have additional weight in scoring because we are a smaller town under a certain population threshold. So I think it's good that the new administration has appointed someone like Ann Goby, but is also paying attention to some of the small town needs. I think that'll be good in the long run for the town of Rutland.
Thank you for volunteering.
Congratulations, Russ.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you. We're gonna do a day on the hill. Should be interesting. And then just finally, this is a picture of the Wood Studio from today. I think as was mentioned, Tamika sent out a notice to staff and boards and committees that with the hiring of a couple of new folks, we'll need to use the conference room in the annex building that was previously used as a conference room and meeting space for some boards and commissions and staff. We will be moving the conference room table from the annex conference room to the Wood Studio to make that a meeting space. We're also looking at making that, first installing internet, but also installing a television so presentations and hybrid meetings can also be held in that meeting space. Great thing about that facility is it has a restroom, it has heat, it has power, it has everything you need to make that a functional meeting space for people to use. So we have a couple more things we have to do, repair the ramp, and then some of the other work just internal that we need to take care of before that can be, fully activated.
Just a suggestion, CIP has met in that building for many times. And in the spring, you gotta bring your big boots with you, cause it's so muddy, your car gets stuck.
Yeah.
So we need to do something if you're gonna have people meeting there. And then in the wintertime, the snow needs to be plowed regularly, cause otherwise you can't get in. So just from being there, that's what I've noticed, okay, to be taken care of.
Yeah, we've asked DPW especially in their routine checks of town buildings just to make sure to pay attention to this one, because we do anticipate obviously with the use of the annex conference room, this will probably be the prime real estate for boards and commissions, especially with some of the new technology to be able to use this this space.
Next question, I don't know if you've thought about it, how do you get a key to that place?
We
I know how we did it in the past, okay?
I think is the Wood Studio reserved through Tamika or the town clerk?
Town clerk, through you.
So when making your reservations through Tamika, that will also include scheduling a time to come pick up the key and dropping off the key, or we'll do the same thing, like if you use the community center, you can pick it up at dispatch with some sort of a deposit that is done similarly for the other as well.
But if Tamika has the key, that would be 10 times easier, we could pick it up directly.
Yeah, we'll increase the price. Tamika uses.
0 is still better than 0.
Yeah.
When will internet be installed in there?
We're working on that now. We have a proposal for supplies to run hardwire and a router over there. We just need to get the final invoice and see what the lead time on those supplies would be. In the interim, looking at a way we have some equipment right now to long range Wi-Fi to see if it'll fit over there. Something we're testing to see if that can be done a little bit sooner, but we're having
For quite a while, there was a hotspot availability over there, but I guess at some point in time it was not picked up as part of the annual payment, so.
I guess, so the good thing in taking a look at the building, there was, thankfully, there was, I think, some thought about the future when constructing the facility, because there actually is, conduit that runs from the fire department to the Wood Studio. So we're planning on running the Cat 5 through that conduit to install the network service there.
How about the ramp? I know that's been ongoing. for
Yeah, so I think
quite a
they
while.
were starting some work on that today, ordering the materials to, I don't think we'll get a new ramp. I think what they'll be doing is fixing some of the issues with the boards, and then also making sure the railing is stable.
So is it gonna be available for use before internet, or is that all have to be in place before it allows?
I think it depends probably on how quickly people start requesting it, and not knowing obviously the date of when the internet will be complete. There may be some boards and commissions or staff that meet there and it doesn't have the internet service, so.
But we can't use it until the ramp is finished.
Right.
That was always a thing, that we couldn't use it.
Yep. And that's all I have for my update.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Austin? I think we kind of went through as he presented, but thank you for everything, Austin. Moving into new and special business, as Board of Public Works, we have a request from our Director of Public Works to increase the water connection fee, from $2,500 to $2,600. That would, it's a $100 increase for that, and that's due to the increased cost of the new water meters. And he would like to also, let me charge 200 for the meter. Okay, yes, right, so that's the $100 is correct, yeah. Yep. So the memo states, due to an increase in the cost of new water meters, I am respectfully asking the board to consider raising the water connection fee from $2,500 to $2,600. The price of the price of meters increased by $100. We currently charge $200 for the meter and the new cost is $291. The water connection fee includes the cost of the meter. Thank you for your consideration, Director of Public Works, Christopher Kolosky. So Austin, I don't know if you have anything additional to add, if you've met with Chris or anything. I don't remember the last time we've had a water connection fee, and this I think is generally put on, is this the one that's put onto the builders as new connections are coming on, or homeowners that are adding additions and adding a connection or something, correct?
Has Chris looked at going out 3 or 5 years to say this will be an adequate price then? Or
Candidly, I think he was just looking at the current cost now and realizing that we're not covering a cost.
Okay.
So just looking to,
I mean,
accommodate the
I'd hate to
difference.
cover the cost today and then start losing it next year or the year after.
well, I mean, I think,
That's what I'm asking.
I think we should be annually, or at least some sort of routine, reviewing our costs and fees for all services. Like most other departments, I know the Board of Health does the same thing as well, just reviewing essentially the cost of doing business, and are we covering through our fee structure, are we covering what it costs to provide those services?
Is that part of our goals to look at this stuff going forward?
That should be, honestly, that should be part of our financial policies.
Okay.
And I think, I mean, if I may, I think it's hard to justify to the individuals paying the fee that if you're charging a significant increase when it's not justified versus reviewing it yearly to make sure that we're within some wiggle room, but not trying to make money off of it.
Well, I agree with you. It's just, what kind of concerned me is it's been years since we've increased that, and my question is why? If it's gonna be another 5 years and we start losing money, then that becomes a different issue. But if we review this every year,
I think we ran into this a year or two ago with another board that we realized that the fees that we were that were being charged to applicants were not covering even the cost of the newspaper postings and everything, the legal requirements, let alone, let alone anything else. So I do think there is a lot of value to adding in to the financial policies, which we're reviewing those policies currently anyway, to routinely, and maybe that's a yearly goal of the department heads and boards and commissions to review their fee structures and ensure that they're covered.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
I'm good with this.
So I would take a motion to honor the director's request to increase the water connection fee to $2,600.
I'll make a motion, as proposed by the department, Chris Kolosky, Director of Public Works, that we increase the water connection fee from $2,500 to $2,600 to cover the cost of the new meter that is gonna be included in that cost.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and second. Any other conversation? Harry, roll call.
Second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Oh, Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We have, looking into the special Wintertown meeting, that we were trying to schedule for the bylaws. We need to set a date, or we would like to set a date and time and location. I think location, we agreed that we would move it out of the schools and move it to the lower level of the public library, if Carrie is amenable to that. And the date and time, which we were originally hoping would be the end of February, we've been asked to consider moving it earlier in February. The two proposed dates, I think, from the, Peter is the chair with bylaw subcommittee, and the, town moderator were either Monday, February 12th of 2024, or Thursday, February 15th, 2024, both with a 6 p.m. start time. So the Monday would be our off meeting night, and then the Thursday is a Thursday night. I think oftentimes our special meetings have been kind of flip-flop between an off Monday and a Thursday, more recently a Thursday, I think. So I don't know if the board, Anita, does your office have any preference between those two dates?
No, I just appreciate that it's not gonna be the same week as
Yeah.
the presidential primary, but either Monday or Thursday is
And we
fine
shared
with us.
similar concerns, kind of moving it into March, that then it gets into town meeting prep for the other boards and commissions also, so that's kind of why we were not amenable to moving it into March.
And this'll get us, I think, early voting, in-person early voting starts that Saturday, so either of those dates works fine.
And Peter, the ad hoc bylaw committee is okay with either of the dates?
We have no opinion on either.
Okay. Austin, Tamika, I don't know if
I'm going to be there.
you have any preference or if the board has any preference.
Don't go, she has to be there anyway.
So does the board, the
I have-
preference is Monday or Wednesday? I mean,
guess-
Monday or Thursday, sorry.
I'm thinking, I guess, of the town, and I'm wondering if Thursday might be better. Cause Monday, everybody starts work and they're right, they come home, I'm thinking Thursday would be better for the citizens.
That's kind of what I was leaning towards originally also.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, Randy was here at the last meeting, the moderator, and was amenable to either of those dates, so, and, so then I guess I would take a motion, and is 6 p.m. start? I know there was conversation about starting later, but the concern was it could go very late then, it's dark potentially weather-wise and everything, it's dark at 6, but it's also dark at 7 and all of that, so I think trying to keep it at 6 is ideal.
Yeah, I agree on that.
So I would take a motion then to set
I'll make a motion for the special winter town meeting for bylaws to be on February 15th, 2024 at 6 o'clock
here in the library. In the library.
in the library, yes, Rutland Public Library.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
second, aye.
Mattson, aye.
Ledger, aye. Whitman, aye. Thank you. So Peter, we can ask to have it communicated officially, but just so you're here and you know, and Anita, you're here and you know that that's what we're looking at. Does that work?
Sound good?
And we can let Randy know and make sure that Carrie is okay with us using the library too, please.
Communicate that to them.
I did tell Carrie this was coming and I told her it could be on either date, but she's aware.
We should probably loop FinCom in also, just as it's a special town meeting, but it's bylaws, so, but just to kind of,
And we'll really need to publicize the change of venue because no matter what we do, there's still gonna be somebody that'll show up to the school. But
Right.
the earlier we can start doing that, the better.
I think we were running into, regardless, it was gonna be not the normal Glenwood, it was gonna be Naquag or here, and so it was gonna be a challenge, so, thank you. We have a request to have the intention to lay out Nate's Way as a public way. This would be a street acceptance that would go before a special town meeting. Generally, we,
Leah, can I just add to the process?
yeah, that's what I was
if
just
I
going.
may? Sure.
Yeah.
So this is the first step in the process where the select board makes a motion of intention to lay it out. I did provide the specific motion in your packets, if you can please read that one. And then it goes to that planning board for their recommendation. So they will be reviewing that at their October 10th meeting. Just a little information behind the scenes. I've been working with Kevin Quinn of Quinn Engineering, who's doing the third-party review. He had done an initial site visit back in April and provided that to the planning board. And it was essentially a punch list of items that still needed to be addressed. The developer, Dave Lucier, has been working on those, and he's going to coordinate with Kevin to do a final site inspection and to provide a report. I've also spoken with Director Kolosky, and he did a site inspection. He also has a memo drafted as to things that he feels need attention. So then the select board will hold another public meeting at your next meeting on October 16th. At that time, you will have the planning board's recommendation and all the supporting documentation to determine if you are comfortable making a formal motion to adopt the ways. In the meantime, I do have a placeholder article because the warrant will close prior to that. So at that time, the board will decide whether or not they're gonna, move forward with it or you're not, but that's at your discretion.
Do you have any information, it was, I feel like that road has been kind of as it has been for quite a while, and do you have any information as to why it's just been sitting there as it is, and now it's been coming up before as being laid out as a public way?
So essentially, Dave Lucier has been maintaining it for the last 20 or so years. And he has just reached a point where he would like to turn it over. I know that efforts have been made in the past and they didn't really go anywhere. I can't speak to the reasons why, I'm not sure. I do know he had hoped to get this on the annual town meeting and it didn't get through the process with the planning board at that time. So I just think it's a matter of, he's just kind of ready to give up maintenance of the road to the town.
Does the board have any, I guess for me personally, my concern is just what that punch list is, but if we have the intent.
So I just wanna clarify, so essentially your motion of intention allows it to move forward in the process to send it to the planning board for their recommendation. This does not mean that you're adopting it, nor does it mean that you're placing it on the warrant. This is just how MGL stipulates that the process has to go. I have been working with attorney Sharon Everett at Town Council, and she's been collaborating with myself and also his attorney, George Carizzi, so she is involved in this process as well, just so you know.
I just wanted to clarify that this is just the intent to move it forward in the process, but it's not by any means
This just kinda gets
saying
the
that-
ball rolling, but it
Right.
does not formalize anything.
And it doesn't lay
still
the
gives-
expectation that we are absolutely going to.
Exactly, yep, cause you still need to have the planning board's recommendation and like I said, all of that documentation will be finalized by the time you guys meet again on the 16th. And that's when you make your determination if you're gonna either vote to adopt the ways, which pushes it onto the warrant, or for you to place on the warrant, or it dies right there and we say it's not gonna happen this time.
Yeah, I
Because-
think specifically to your point, for that 16th meeting, I would like to see that punch list of
Oh,
what the
absolutely.
requirements are and where we're at with those.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's the intention of that final inspection with Kevin Quinn as well, is that between April and now, Dave was supposed to have attended to that punch list. And so Kevin's gonna do that site inspection and provide a report that says everything was addressed, or these are the things that are still outstanding. I do know that Chris has some concerns. He has his own punch list of items. I just received that today, so I did share that with Dave so that he has an opportunity to attend to those if he can before that next meeting.
Yeah, I guess I wanna be clear, I think in the past, it's been the expectation that if we show the intention to lay the way, then the expectation among the public is that it will be adopted as a public way, and I just wanna be clear that we want the process to follow through, and that doesn't mean that at the 16th meeting, there's still a whole host of things that are outstanding, but we're just supposed to have good faith that they're going to be addressed before,
Not at all.
because I know in the past, those have been some considerations,
Absolutely.
and I just wanna make sure that it's, from my perspective, but I sense from the board's perspective, that we wanna make sure that we're not,
No, I completely understand, and I think from a staff perspective, we're really trying our best to make sure that that everybody's involved in the process, both the developer, town council, town DPW director, and if it comes down to, there are items that have not been addressed and the board is not comfortable, you are absolutely within your right to say, we are not going to move forward with the adoption, maybe we try again at the spring town meeting. So this is simply a motion of intention, but it does not guarantee that this is going to make it onto the warrant, and that has been made clear to the applicant and his attorney.
Okay.
thank you. Does the board have any other questions or comments or concerns? I mean,
It sounded like you voiced your concerns of what has happened in the past. We don't wanna see it happen again, so I'm good with that.
I agree.
so I think Tamika graciously provided us the motion that needs to be read explicitly to be able to follow the process, so.
I move that the select board vote its intention to lay out Nate's Way as a public way, all as shown on a plan entitled Definitive Plan Nate's Way dated December 9th, 2005, prepared by Finley Engineering Services, which plan is on file with the town clerk, and to forward this vote and the plan to the planning board for its comments and recommendations pursuant to GL Chapter 41, Section 81G and 81I.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Any additional questions, comments, concerns? Roll call.
If I may, I was just gonna add, for anybody in the public that may be interested, I do have all of this information posted on the select board page. It does include as-built plans as well, which was something that the planning board wanted to see during their review. And there's also paper copies available in the town clerk's office, so between now and then, if anybody's interested, that information is available.
Awesome.
On Nate's Way under the select board?
Yep, so if you go to the select board page under news and announcements, it says street acceptance, Nate's Way, and if you click on that, it has all the documents underneath there.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a motion and a second. I'll take a roll call. Harry?
Second, aye?
That's the night.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. And you'll communicate that to planning board on our behalf, please?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I know you usually do, but
Yep.
just make sure.
You got it.
Thank you. It's 8:00, so if we can maybe try to hit a general bylaw review at least very briefly. If the board's amenable to sticking around for,
There's only one thing that we have to talk about tonight, and only one, and it's very brief. Once I figure it out, share the screen. And no, it's not that one.
do you wanna send this stuff to sign a while?
That's the one I want to show.
Thank you.
Who cares about the agenda? What we care about is Bill S 2371, which our special legislation about the Select Board and Board of Public Works. Today, it went through its third reading, it was amended and passed to be engrossed. That tells me it'll probably be on the governor's desk in a couple of weeks. Couple small steps they have to do, Senate has to do a little bit more. And conference committee, blah, blah, but that's it. We are very much in the home stretch.
Great.
Thank you
That's
for
the only thing I
update.
said we have to do tonight. I leave it up to the board if you want to discuss anything else. Whether it's delinquent taxpayers.
I don't know how the board feels sticking around for maybe 15 to 30 minutes to try to bang something out if we're here. We know that we have the February date kind of looming over us.
Right.
So,
I have no problem discussing it for another 15 minutes personally. I just want to make sure that there is a policy and procedure out there for use of legal counsel. And I don't know if that should be worked into the
There's a
bylaws.
lot in the town council bylaw that we're going to review, I expect, or at least start at our next session next Wednesday.
Okay. Got it. So this is license and permits? I thought we were doing legal, okay.
No, legal counsel is too long,
Okay,
too much to
that's
do
what I
in one of these meetings.
so I think on our agenda, it did say that we were gonna do legal.
Legal affairs, which I.
Legal affairs is the chapter.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry, it's me. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Okay.
Too many papers up here. Alright, so I think we said, it says legal affairs, chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5 potentially.
Right, so, Article 2, licenses and permits of delinquent taxpayers, I'd like to introduce you to my very least favorite bylaw. And it's my least favorite bylaw because we're not allowed to touch it. I have tried a couple times to say, well, what if we reword this way? No, says town council. I believe town council is misreading Mass General Law, but fundamentally, the content is what town council says must be. Basically, all this says is that before someone gets a permit, if you're delinquent in your tax paying, that you don't get the permit. If you have a permit and you become delinquent, that permit can be canceled. Not is, not shall be, may be. Tax collector, in our case, the treasurer collector, is responsible for keeping a list of people who are late and to distribute those to department heads and anybody who issues permits. That's what section 3 is all about. Yep. That person, that official distributes it. I'm not even allowed to change it to, it has to say the tax collector or other town official responsible for records of all town taxes, etc. I'm not allowed to say treasurer collector. Okay. This section 4 says what I just said. It can be revoked, it can be denied, it can be suspended instead of completely revoked, all up to the licensing authority.
Peter,
Yes,
when you say revoke, that's at any point in time of that permit or license.
correct.
It's not on when you were issued a date,
No.
1 year from now, okay.
I have do you know when the town accepted GL 40, section 57?
I
I
can,
didn't see it in the footnote, but I also,
well, it's not in the footnote, we actually have an entire chapter dedicated to accepted sections of Mass General Law. Come on. What was it, 40 what?
chapter 40, section 57.
57, June 28, 93, article number 7.
Thank you.
Let's see how many of these I have to go back. Oh, there we go, okay. Moving on, if you are delinquent, you can set up a payment agreement. This overlaps a little bit with another bylaw that we have with the treasurer collector where she can set up payment. But that's not, this is specifically dealing with licenses. But there are no details here about what the agreement can look like, so the treasurer collector can set up pretty much any agreement that he or she believes is right. The select board may waive denial, suspension, revocation. Please.
Is there a process for how that comes to us?
I have no idea. I suspect it would be nothing more than a request to put something on the agenda for a select board meeting.
So, this is, if I'm cursory reading the bylaw and the MGL, pretty much the bylaw is verbatim the MGL.
That's exactly why it's this way. Because MGL says shall provide these provisions.
And this is my ongoing question, is why we.
Do we need all of it?
Right, why we,
Yes, because in order, that section of MGL allows you to write a bylaw that allows you to revoke, deny, or suspend a permit. And the bylaw by MGL must contain those provisions which are virtually identical to what's in MGL, because that's what MGL says you have to do.
So MGL doesn't waive, deny, or suspend, it's the board that does, and we have to have a bylaw, because if the board wants to do that, it has to have all that in there.
That's correct. In order for the town to be able to suspend an active permit, this bylaw is necessary, well, for delinquency in paying taxes. In order to be able to do that, this bylaw must exist.
and I guess I'm not denying the fact, again, I'm not denying the fact that the bylaw needs to exist, but I guess I'm denying or questioning if, and this goes back to some of my previous comments, why we're choosing to include the entirety of MGL or.
Because
bits and
town
pieces.
council tells us we must.
Okay.
That is why.
Okay.
This is why I say it's my least favorite. I have no latitude to improve this. Including, by the way, applicability. Bicycle permits. There has not been a bicycle permit in 30 years. It was taken out of MGL 30 years ago. But the Mass General Law that enabled us to write the permit was written while it was still active, and so it's there. So even though that line has no effect whatsoever,
What's a bicycle permit?
you actually could get a bicycle and a license for your bicycle, a license and a license plate for your bicycle from the police department. You would register it with the police department.
Really?
On this applicability, nothing can be added, nothing can
Nope.
be taken away.
Absolutely not.
So that's,
Well, nothing can be taken away. It is possible that we could add more permits. I think that could be feasible. I just don't know, considering how broad, well, I guess that's it. So we could, I suspect we could add permits to this.
I mean, MGL says a city or town may exclude any local license or permit from this section by bylaw or ordinance. So I guess we need it for the exclusions, because I would then argue that it's not
Right.
applicability, it's exclusions, because we can only exclude.
It's anti-applicability. That's
Right.
right. Because it is by its nature every single permit. So we're not allowed to revoke an open burning permit. The town is not. Because that's what's in our bylaw today. Now, if we remove that, then we could revoke a burning permit.
I'm curious as to why we still have children work permits.
Anyone under 16.
Under 14.
Well,
14.
even under,
14 to 17.
yeah,
I think so.
you're supposed to have a work permit.
I think under 14, there's one set of hours, and
Yeah.
above that is a different set of hours. And certainly above 16 is yet another set of hours.
And it goes to the school system, to the superintendent's office, it doesn't.
This town's not really involved.
I mean,
so-
we're allowed our kids to drive at 16, but they need a work permit? It's like,
Well, it's to limit their hours, it's more for, on the employer side, that the employer is aware that they are of a certain age, that they're not supposed to work more hours or hours outside of a set time or whatever.
okay.
Now, to me, it's probably a pretty good idea that we cannot revoke a marriage license.
Is there any definition, theatrical events or public exhibition permits such as circuses?
Whatever's covered by General Laws, Chapter 140,
Okay,
Section
we'll have to look
181.
that up. All right.
That's it.
So if I understand correctly, unless we have something or some things that we want to add to the exclusions, there's not really anything that anybody can do.
Right.
Because the town adopted this in 1993.
Because we stripped it down in the committee, and then as soon as legal saw it, it was, put it all back in.
We're very unhappy with that.
Did the committee discuss what adding items could have been?
To exclude?
No, yeah,
Yeah, to add to the exclusion list, very, very briefly.
okay.
Because again, when I think about things like building permits, that's something that we probably want to be able to suspend and revoke. Sewer permits, you know, all the construction, I think that those permits are there, and if somebody's not paying their taxes, that's a big hammer to wield if you decide to do it.
Right.
I'm just curious if you went down
Yeah,
that road.
we did a little bit, not very much. We didn't
Okay.
think about pulling anything off the exclusion list because they're all incredibly minor permits in the grand scheme of things.
Okay.
So I just had a question. I'm sure Leah will remember this. I wanna say it was maybe 3 years ago. We had some businesses that were not paid up to date on their taxes, and it was license renewal season.
Mhm.
And there were some members that wanted to withhold that license until they paid it, but there was nothing that said we could do that. So my question is, do you add
That is.
licenses?
No, if it's a permit issued by the town and it's not on this exclusion list, they can be denied, they can be revoked, they can be
So I think
suspended.
what happened was they were delinquent in things, did not have a payment plan set up with the treasurer collector. And so the board voted to not renew based on that delinquency and no communication with the treasurer collector, because I think generally the treasurer collector has been business friendly in the sense of if you're on a payment plan and work with the office to have communication and have something, that then you're considered in good standing, even if you are delinquent, but you're still making. And the businesses, the board did not renew the licenses, but the businesses still opened, continued to open and function as business despite having the notices on, even posted that they were not open, or should not be open until.
So what happened?
This
Nothing?
this goes back to this goes back to the enforcement piece of a lot of our conversation in town is there's not been much strong enforcement.
I'm sorry, Leah, I misremembered it.
No, I think that's what it was.
Cause I thought that there was a conversation too about letting them continue because it wasn't business friendly to shut them down. I forget what surrounded that conversation, but I thought it was because we thought we couldn't withhold it because of that. But I obviously had it backwards.
There was maybe another, the one that I distinctly remember was the conversation that because they hadn't even come in to have the conversation with the treasurer collector, but maybe there was another one that I'm not remembering.
Yeah, I might be confusing it, so never mind, I'll listen.
But it is good to know that the board does hold the authority
Yeah.
To withdraw. It does not get in, I mean, I think that this is a current struggle and going to continue to be a struggle, that enforcement piece. And whether we look at somehow, some way dividing the powers of enforcement or making it a more prominent role of an existing position or something, it's tough because they were, I think even, I felt like Board of Health was involved for closing down, cause it was, food establishments.
It was, yeah.
And, that they still were posted that they shouldn't be open, and they still opened, and.
Yep.
Okay.
that question's not helpful, I apologize.
No, it's,
No, but
I
it's
think it
good
was
to-
helpful, I will not, because it made me go back and reread this, it's been so long since I've actually read the text of this, you'll notice that there is the opportunity for public hearing before you revoke.
Right.
And there has to be a public hearing in order to allow or grant or deny a permit, so, the only cases of special hearing, of a public hearing would be if you were going to revoke or suspend. But other than that, there's already a public hearing in the process, but that's something you
Not
can't
for a
forget about.
license renewal though,
I was gonna,
not for license renewals.
Not renewals?
No.
Oh, okay,
no
so then,
renewals.
so in that case, that would require a hearing for you to suspend the license.
to not renew. Because it's,
To suspend, to,
so
or
the issue
revoke.
was,
Not renewing it.
right, the issue was, I don't think, right, the issue was not renewing it, it wasn't revoking it like mid,
It would be
Mid-cycle.
denying their renewal, right?
right, it would be denying
Effectively,
the
yeah.
renewal.
I mean, you can look at license renewal like you look at appointments to boards. Each time you renew, it's still a new appointment. It's a new license you are granting.
So then does that mean that for every one of our license renewals, we should be having public hearings?
I am not familiar enough with MGL to say.
Because I think part of the conversation was not to broadcast people's financial business, but also not continue to allow them to operate if there was no communication with the treasurer collector. And so I think a hearing,
So I guess to kind of combat that is, once I put them into Viewpoint, I would then know, I would hear from the tax collector's office, you know, we're not gonna move this forward because this is what's happening. And if they didn't put something in place, I would have enough advance notice to be able to say, okay, if the board is gonna consider denying this, we're gonna have to plan ahead and schedule a public hearing. Maybe that would be the best way to approach it, cause the majority of the licenses are gonna go through and wouldn't require a public hearing.
right.
Would that be a fair
And-
assumption based on what
and maybe that would be
says?
enough impetus then to have the business have the conversation with the treasurer collector.
Yep, which is why I try to start, like, I'm sending my letters out this week. So I try to start the process early to try to make sure that we work through any hiccups and get all the documents. So by the time it comes to the board in December, everything's been worked out.
I don't know how frequently the treasurer collector reviews delinquencies and reconciles delinquencies versus payment plans versus whatever. That's, I think to do it quarterly is potentially a big time constraint, but I don't know. This is an area that is not in the realm, so historically, we've only looked at in my time here, but I think even before that, the board had only looked at when it comes time for either a new application or the renewals, that everything was met.
Yep, that's a fair point.
I guess
I looked in between.
so if I'm hearing this correctly, the treasurer collector has the right to make an arrangement with an individual to pay that will allow him to keep doing what he's doing. It could be the sixth or seventh time, and the select board has no control over that whatsoever.
Correct.
Okay.
The instant, and if you go up to the previous, actually, the thing I wanna point out up above, neglected or refused to pay any tax fee, assessment, betterment, or other town charges. So any money that they owe goes into this. And that party has not filed a good faith or pending application for an abatement. So they also stop the process by filing an abatement, by requesting, or a pending petition of the appellate tax board. No, I don't think we have an appellate tax board in this town.
And I don't know.
Now, in the past, when I have seen the lists of delinquent taxpayers, which I see as a department head and a permit grantor, I remember seeing the list of people and whether or not there's a payment plan. That's already, that was already part of her process, so we would know automatically if it's okay. Which also takes out of it the whole, I hear this person is late, or isn't paying, but we don't really know. It's up to the treasurer collector to keep that in place.
Right.
And keep up to date on that.
Who determines good faith?
So I think, and I don't know, but I think the way, and I don't know if it's in the treasurer collector bylaw, but the way it is now is that there's and I don't know how the agreement is, but there's an agreement between the individual or party and the treasurer collector, and that is continued to be met.
Yeah, it's basically, the ongoing process is continuing. That's what in good faith means.
Right.
Because you can't say, we as not the people involved have no business saying that Anita is just filing a tax abatement to take up time before she has to start paying. That's not any of our places to say. That's up to the abatement authority to decide and manage.
Okay. We don't have a lot of these, do we? A lot of these issues?
2030, last I
I
saw.
mean, where they filed and not done in good faith?
Oh, when they filed, no, it tends to be that they completely ignore the town.
Oh,
Is what I've seen.
okay. Okay.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else on this one, and I hesitate to move on to public consumption. We'll save that for a future meeting.
Okay. So then, thank you, Peter. Thanks, Anita, for being here. So then we have our future meeting, scheduled October 11th, is the bylaw review. And we will probably leave town council and continue on with the legal affairs chapters.
We'll do CIPC first,
Okay.
and then town council. And if we get through that, then we'll just continue on through the list of bylaws.
Then our regular scheduled meeting is October 16th. We'll have a special meeting on October 26th to place the warrant articles for town meeting. Is there value to having FinCom come to that one also? And
So, historically, it was not a joint meeting, and
Right.
it's only been done the last couple of years.
right,
In my opinion, there would be benefit if they were willing to make their recommendations that same night.
I was gonna say maybe we can
Or
talk.
not. But I did put this on their agenda for Thursday night
Okay.
so that they can have a discussion, because at some point they do need to meet to make those recommendations. If they meet that night, I would be able to include them on the warrant, whereas if they meet after that, I wouldn't be able to include it on the posted warrant.
I remember a couple years ago, it was a joint meeting with FinCom, and we all talked about the placement, but then also the recommendations.
Yes.
And I thought that meeting was maybe a little bit longer, but more cohesive, just going into warrant prep and everything, but I don't.
Well, I know that the last time they met jointly for this annual town meeting, they did not make their recommendations that night, and they still held a separate meeting.
Right.
So I think it's worth having a conversation about what the intention would be of
Right.
meeting jointly.
If I may, a previous discussion that FinCom had was that they liked being at the placement meeting so that they have the opportunity to ask questions that feed into their end discussion of whether or not to vote favorably or on their recommendation. That comment was specifically made last year. I don't know why they decided to hold a separate meeting for recommendations, but
I mean, I'm more than happy to have them. I think that there is a lot of value to having a joint meeting and having the conversations. I personally liked the year that we did talk about them and voted on recommendations at the same meeting. Just then it was, all the questions were asked and it wasn't rehashing questions or bringing up issues that that the select board can't know about, or I shouldn't say can't know about, but doesn't know about and can't address because the article has already been placed or whatever, so.
Yep, we'll definitely plan to have a discussion with them this Thursday about that, so we can try to figure something out moving forward.
So this Thursday, FinCom is meeting to go over, I think, the financial policies. And I'm sure that they have other agenda items. Do you think that it's value to co-post with us? I haven't talked to them about whether or not we would be attending or not. But I don't necessarily, I would maybe attend just more to listen and hear what their conversation is, but not participate as a board. If people wanted to attend, they can, and just not speak as, deliberate as a board.
It's completely up to you guys. We do still have time to post, if you wanted me to post it as a joint meeting.
Let me,
I don't know if a joint meeting, if we'll all be there for the
Right,
joint meeting.
right.
So
I
I
was
think
gonna
just sitting in, if we have time to get there, listen to
Right.
what they have to say.
I was gonna say, I'm leaning more towards not, and that gives them space to have their own conversation and
Right.
because I think we're just kind of looking similar to what I had asked from our board, if there was questions or suggestions, that it goes through the town administrator office. And kind of the policies are in the hands of the finance team, town administrator, treasurer, collector, assessor, that's kind of how it goes.
Well, if
So-
anybody's interested, they're gonna be meeting in the Calkins room and at 6:15, and there's also a Zoom link on the agenda.
On the 15th,
No, at 6:15, sorry,
Oh,
this
6:15.
Thursday night, the 5th.
6:15.
And then we meet, our regular scheduled meeting is October 30th. And then yeah,
So you guys will sign the warrant at your October 30th
Yes.
meeting, and it will be posted November 2nd, by November 2nd.
so is there any other business to come before the board? Does anyone have any topics that they'd like for future consideration?
I wanna invite members of the board if registration for the MMA annual meeting and trade show opened, I think today. If you would like to attend, you can check it out on the MMA website if you're interested. There's some pretty interesting speakers and workshops. And if you need assistance with registering, just reach out to our office and we can help.
It's paid for by the town.
Yeah, we've got a massive budget for it. I think generally select board members usually, at least we can figure out a way to get you there.
I also wanted to bring up the trunk or treat that the public safety office or building is hosting on October 31st. I don't know if the board has any interest in participating either individually or as a board. We can, kind of have that conversation, maybe just shoot Tamika an email, or you can put feelers out on our behalf.
Is that the
Are
town's
still-
is that the time the town's having trick or treating?
So the town's trick or treating is 5 to 8. This event is 4 to 7. And they are still looking for additional businesses or local organizations to sign up if they'd like to participate. They have about 10 or 11 right now, but the more the merrier for our first annual.
So we can think about it and look at our schedules and. So if there's no other business to come before the board, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? I'm not even gonna offer it, a roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
That's the.
Ledger I.
Whitman, aye. We're adjourned at 8:29. Thank you all.